Hey World Civilizations, Mr. Lassiter with you, and in this video we're going to be talking about the path to civilization. So we'll be looking quite a bit at basically just all of human prehistory. So let's go ahead and get started. Our video goals: we want to know how do we know about this prehistory? How did we get here? What defines a civilization and what do they have in common? That's going to be a big question for this entire unit. And then also, what was this thing called the Neolithic Revolution and what were its consequences? A lot of vocabulary here, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, civilization. That's kind of what we're aiming at, trying to figure out how we get to this point. And it's the stage of human social development and organization that is considered the most advanced. So what I want you to do right now is think to yourself, what makes up a civilization? I want you to brainstorm a list of about 3 or 4 things. Write it down. There's power in writing it down. And pause the video as you do this. So right now, pause the video, think of 3 or 4 things, and then once you've done that, you can continue. Alright, so take that list, set it to the side for a second, and see if it comes up later. First of all, I want to think about this question. How do we know about our prehistory? And prehistory just simply refers to the time period before writing develops. So pretty much we're going to get into written history within this first unit, but there's still a lot out there that we don't know about in some societies that don't have writing. And we usually learn about this through 2 social sciences, archaeology and anthropology. Archaeology is the study of past societies, and usually they study what they have left behind: tools, pottery, weapons, buildings. These are what we call artifacts. And anthropology studies human life and culture, and it's very closely connected to archaeology. It studies artifacts as well, and it also studies human fossils. And through this study of human fossils, we've come to learn a little bit about, where we come from. And so here's a rundown of where we come from, very simplified. If you want more specifics, go to the textbook reading linked in the PLP. Basically, we have 3 major stages of development. First stage, hominids. These are where our primate ancestors started walking upright. And so, for example, Australopithecus or the Australopithecines, these different branches were basically the first creatures to walk upright. In the second stage, evolve a little bit more, branches thin out, Homo erectus comes around, and the third stage, Homo sapiens. And 2 major branches of Homo sapiens develop: Neanderthals, who you've probably heard of, furrowed brow, a little bit shorter, but also lived at the same time as humans, and then ourselves, Homo sapiens sapiens. And that is not a typo. Humans first appear in Africa from about 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. So in the kind of cosmic scope of history, a very tiny time period. And the migration out of this region of Africa where they develop really doesn't occur until about 100,000 years ago. So the origins of civilization. Homo sapiens migrate from Africa to Europe and Asia. And this ancient kind of time period we refer to as the Stone Age, right? And there's 2 time periods in this: the Paleolithic, which literally means Old Stone Age, or Neolithic, which means New Stone Age. And for most of this time, for most of human history, we were hunter-gatherers. Basically, men usually would hunt big game, and women would gather plants, vegetables, and other foods. And there are some arguments out there that this was a much more efficient way to live. People usually lived in camps and small family-oriented clans, and they migrated from place to place depending on the season and the food supply. We have evidence of this. For example, archaeologists and anthropologists have uncovered rock paintings and cave paintings that depict hunting and gathering. And there are also still some societies on Earth that do hunt and gather. So we have a lot of evidence of this occurring. This map shows you the patterns of human expansion. For humanity developing within Africa and then spreading to Southwest Asia, then through Europe and Asia, and then around the time of the last ice age, about 10 to 12,000 years ago, humans crossed a land bridge to North America and then migrated throughout North and South America. And humans migrated, of course, through Oceania as well once they learned sailing technologies. So humans have gradually expanded over thousands and thousands of years. We're talking over 100,000 years moving to all these regions. And that kind of brings us to probably the most significant invention in human history, and that is farming, the domestication of plants and also animals. But this first takes place in the Middle East, Southwest Asia, Turkey, and then Mesopotamia, then the Nile River Valley, Greece, Central Europe, etc. And we call it the Neolithic Revolution. This is when humans learned to farm plants and to domesticate animals. And this created a large population increase. So I want you to look through these notes, pause the video, look at the picture to the right, and think to yourself, why might this have led to a large population increase? All right, so let's look at the consequences of this food surplus. There's several things. First of all, that population increase I told you about. When there's more food available because you're able to farm a large area and you're not scavenging for food, or you have animals there on the ready to eat, you're able to support larger families and larger groups of people. Also, we have what we call specialization of labor. Not everybody needs to farm anymore. If you know there's going to be food available, some people can specialize in making weapons or building homes or being religious figures or possibly just learning to write. There's improved technology because you have time now to work on that. Some jobs become more valuable than others, so we start to see social stratification, and we actually start to see classes develop. People are no longer thinking about the community when this happens. Instead, they start to have personal possessions. Then you need to protect those possessions. So armies are built up so the next place over doesn't come and steal your possessions. People have time to begin to develop highly organized religion. They have time to write. Governments form to organize the people. Population density increases as communities and then towns and then eventually cities form. And before you know it, you have what we were talking about, the most highly advanced state of humanity, civilization.